One of the other things you have to be concerned with when integrating into a factory stereo is two things. One, load resistance. Load resistance is the load that the speaker puts on the factory amplifier that in turn the amplifier sees and will either A, play properly, meaning it needs that load on it so that the amplifier just doesn't become unstable and go out of control. In this case, in an F150, if it doesn't see some form of a load, the tweeters go crazy. You could possibly blow the new tweeters you're gonna be putting in because they're just gonna get frequencies they're not capable of playing at a volume that they don't like. In some cars, it just shuts off altogether, meaning you get no sound because it sees it as the speaker might be blown and it doesn't want to damage itself, so it just shuts off. One of the cool features of the kicker key is this little button right here. It says audio detect. You push it in. What this is going to do now is create a load that the radio will see and be like, oh, okay, there's still a speaker attached to me. I can play normal. Now that we know this is the harness that we're going to need to use in the car, there are a few things I like to do to this harness to make it more, user-friendly. You don't have to do anything at this point if you don't want to. The only thing you're concerned with are these two ends right here. This is your output from the factory radio. This is going to go to the input. These here are the amplifier. These are the outputs to the speaker. So that's what these from the amplifier are going to connect up to. You can just leave it like that, cut these ends off and rock on and leave this pigtail alone. I would suggest if you're going to do that though to insulate all the ends of these wires. I myself don't like to leave this end on there. What I like to do is unravel all this tape and cut all these out, solder the connections back together and make a new harness that's just designed to integrate with my amplifier. The first step is of course getting all this tape off, which usually starts here at the Y section. Just start unraveling. Once you get all the tape off, separate out the speaker wires at this plug end here, and then what you're gonna have left is all these little pieces of shrink wrap all over the place. Remove all of those too. Once all that little heat shrink is off, the next step is to remove this harness here from these long wires. Be careful at this junction point and make sure you cut the right one. Once you get it removed, replace the heat shrink that you just cut off of here so that these wires are properly insulated. Come over to these last few remaining wires like here that are also attached and cut them. Each one of these is a little bit different. And this one that's going to leave this power and ground left over, cut those and you're going to cap them off. If you have a pin removal tool, pull the pin out, and once at pin level, remove the wire and then reinsert the pin, and it sits in there deep enough to where it won't affect anything. What we end up with after doing all those steps is these nice long 12-inch wires here, shrink wrap replaced, shrink wrap replaced on these. The easiest thing to do in these, cut them, strip them really short, solder them back together so as not to make the harness too tight. And we want to replace the tape that we took off. Now on this end here, that's what this guy is for. You can plug this in. This is your speaker output. So if for any reason you need to unplug your speaker output or the power coming from the amplifier to the existing speakers, let's say you're setting gains or something like that, and you want to make sure all the speakers are disconnected. For replacing the tape, I like to use exterior Tessa tape. They make two kinds. Fuzzy fleece, which is good over like solder points like this area right here. I'm going to put this, that way if I ever need to undo it, I can easily. This is a little bit harder and takes more temperature. The whole harness will be covered in this. With the harness taped back up, I like to put heat shrink on the ends here so that the tape doesn't unravel. But with this done, we can move on to the next portion of the install, which is getting the amplifier mounted in the car. Before we do that, since we're still talking about the harness, this is going to be 100% speaker wire driven, meaning there's going to be wire going back to the amplifier and there's going to be wire coming from the amplifier back to here. To do that, we're going to be using a product that is called Speedwire. There's a couple different companies that make it. This Speedwire is actually the Stinger brand, and it says Speedwire right here on the sleeve. Inside of the Speedwire, which can be cut if you take your razor knife and go down to just one little click, gently go into the exterior sleeve. Now each manufacturer is a little bit different on that exterior sleeve. Stinger uses a super thick 16th inch sleeve. What that means for you is that if you don't want to put tape on it, you don't have to, because this is properly insulated enough. Inside You're also gonna have 9 individually shielded 18 gauge wires. Why 9 is because there's also a remote turn on in here. But the color codes all match up to these color codes here, in that you have a gray set, a green set, a purple set, and a white set, just like we talked about earlier. Once you get the end like this, grab here and grab on this, and you can pull and it will pull itself out. To remove this, there again, take your razor blade and just twist the wire around and score into it. You don't have to cut all the way through except for on the tips. And then you just kind of twist it and it'll tear off. And then you can put some shrink wrap over the end here to make it all finished and looking cool. There's also, in the Stinger, it comes with this little nylon piece. Get that out of the way. And we're gonna be running 2 runs of this. Now keep in mind, this is about the size of a piece of 4 gauge. So you're gonna have 2 runs of 4 gauge along with whatever size power wire you're using. So you may want to go down the opposite side of the car. Don't put this all down one side. Separate it apart for no other reason other than just to handle wire management and how thick this is gonna become. The one thing missing from this install, if you haven't caught on yet, there's no subwoofer. And the reason there's no subwoofer is because this is just phase 1 of the installation. It's just improving the overall sound of the car. This is what the customer wants to do. He also really likes the amp boards that we build back here in the F-150s. Plan is to make an amp board that goes here that's big enough to when he decides to upgrade to a subwoofer amp, probably the Kicker Key 501, so they'll match and look cool, and you know, he'll get the DSP settings all the way through. What he would like us to do is make an amp board here and do as much pretty wiring as we can on it, which I'm totally fine with. I totally dig, you know, pretty amplifiers and pretty wiring and all that fun stuff. I'm thinking we probably need to make it about, you know, yay wide, coming over. There's an air vent right here. Probably come about from here up, or from here down. It'll screw into this location here and here, and all the wiring will tuck this way and go that way for signal. This area is where the amplifier is gonna go. I'm gonna make it out of 1/4-inch plastic. I like to go up into this area right here and drill a hole to mount my amplifier. I have seen somebody that actually used this bolt here for an amplifier mount, which isn't a terrible idea, but I'm not gonna do that. So I'm looking at, if I go to where this carpet is so I can make a nice cut, 17¼ tall by 15½. So 17¼ by 15½ will get us the basic shape we need, and then we'll cut some of the other stuff off to make it fit this area. What I want to do is remove this area here and this area here, so that just leaves this top piece that'll screw into this spot here. With the top cut to where we wanted it, we put our amp board against and removed this area of carpet right here, folded it down so that it can be folded back up. Drill a hole here, put a nutsert, a threaded nutsert, so that we can pull it in and out as many times as we need to, and we'll have a nice place to mount our amplifiers as time goes on and he grows his installation. But for right now, we just have the 1 amp. So let's head over to the bench and get this thing wired up.